foundation, like the whole being maybe better than the parts?
Sure, yeah, and I think we talk about that all the time. The sum is always going to be better than the parts if you're going to have a winning football team, especially at the University of Iowa, but really anybody that plays football. You better have a team that's better than the individuals because it's the ultimate team sport. And so I think obviously it speaks to that. And we vote for the coaches team. We make those selections. I don't know how everyone else does that, but as a staff, we sit down and talk about the players we played against. I don't know if people do that in our league or not. I don't know what your guys' selection process is. I think the offensive line's a really subjective position anyway. Most people, to include most head coaches, don't know what they're watching. So you're going to see that team. It's always popular, the first and second team, by the people who have the most success throughout the conference slate. Rightfully so. That's just how it works. We understand that. I think we did manage to have a second team All-American, which is an interesting, I guess our conference is pretty tough, I suppose. But we feel like we have good players here. But as Reese alluded to earlier, one of the primary requirements to come play here is: do you have an unselfish attitude? Are you more interested in your own personal success, or are you willing to sacrifice that for what's best for the collective? And so, especially on the offensive line, that's a big requirement. So to have guys come in that buy into that, and then they're able to be recognized for that, I think that's pretty special.
Along those lines, building an offensive lineman, there are tangibles and there are intangibles. I mean, you can't take a 5'9", 185 kid, but you can take a 6'2", 215 and build them up. Likewise, there are intangibles that I'm sure you look at that are non-negotiable. What, without being too specific, as I'm building nobody in particular, how can you describe what you're looking for, and how do you build an offensive lineman to become a representative of Iowa?
Sure. Yeah, there's no trade secrets. I wouldn't hold anything back from you. And I would say, to your point about the 5'9", 165-pound guy, I think it's all about what you're going to ask him to do. And if you're coaching at West High, that guy probably can play on the offensive line for you. It depends on what your system is, who he's going to be working against. Like you said, it is all about the intangibles. Now, at some point, we're going to have to block guys like Brantley from Florida, right? Who's, I'm sure he's 300 pounds, he's 6'2", and he can move, and he's an athlete, and all those things. So there are those requirements that go into it. But once you find the physical characteristics, which exist, I won't say they're bountiful out there, but there's a lot of guys that have the physical ability to play at our level. The intangibles, as Reese alluded to, you're looking for guys that love football, that want to compete, have unselfish attitudes. And I wish it was as easy as saying, hey, here's a survey or here's a test. That's what they do in the NFL, right? Everybody takes a personality test, and you look at all this data. But at the end of the day, what does it really mean? And there are some franchises that have that information. They really believe in some of those tests, and they've had success with them. Recruiting doesn't really work that way, but you do get exposure to guys. You bring them to camp, and you see how they compete in camp, how they respond to coaching, how they respond to adverse environments, which are of our creation. So they're as adverse as we want them to be. And you try to do it subtly, so maybe guys don't always understand what you're doing, but you're just evaluating everything they do. How do they respond to A, B, and C? You get to know their family. You get to know the people that have coached them. You get to know the environment they've grown up in, what they've been subjected to, and you just try to get a feel for them. And there's no socioeconomic indicators. There's no geographic indicators. There's nothing simple about it. To me, it's just about kind of, if you know the people that have had success in this building, in the other building, then you have a pretty good idea what you're looking for. It's hard to quantify, but you kind of know it when you see it. But it gets vetted. It's an extremely long process. We're very slow to recruit offensive linemen. We're very hesitant to go far beyond our radius to recruit offensive linemen because you don't know them as well. I think Sean Welsh is a good example. Sean Welsh was a guy that I'd been in school there several times. I'd been around, and we went late, relatively late, it's all relative now, on Sean Welsh compared to other schools. But we were getting to know him. And he was a guy that didn't come to camp, couldn't come to camp. They can't wear pads, guys from Ohio. So it would have been a waste of his time. So you really do a lot of work trying to figure out, what his makeup is. James Daniels was a guy that we had known since he was young. We had known him, we had had contact with him since before you should, because you're doing a home visit with LaShawn, and he's sitting over there, and they got another young one, which I probably can't talk about, because I'm sure that is a violation, it's 9. But I'm watching him wrestle their dog. And I was evaluating that, right, as you would. But you get to know the people, and if you know the people, then you know there's pretty good indicators about maybe where that young guy's headed, and that's what you try to go off of. So that's a long answer, and as I said, there's no trade secrets. I mean, I tell you guys whatever you want to know about our evaluation process. People ask about the development of offensive linemen. That's more about who you bring in here. We'll give you the tools. That's never going to change. But who comes in here? How willing are they to accept that coaching? How responsive are they to that environment? That's going to determine their success, not what we do.